Hello, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Shall we start now, ma'am?
Yes, you can start.
Hello, everyone. Present here virtually. I am Preeti here, and I welcome you all for today's session, which is titled as Silicon as a Remarkable Nutrient for Soil, Plants, and Human Health. I am presenting this session. We have with us our today expert, Dr. Chanchal Malhotra, ma'am. Dr. Chanchal Malhotra, ma'am, is currently working as an assistant professor at Baba Masnath University, Department of Botany, Haryana. She completed her PhD in biotechnology from MT University, Noida. In her research work, she has documented the effect of silicon on psychosociological and biochemical parameter of tomato crop underwater state conditions. She has also studied the effect of silicon fertilizer on yield attribute and parameter of rice. She is a life member of ISSAG, International Society of Silicon in Agriculture, an international non-profit organization that has a mission to advance, disseminate, and promote the knowledge and use of silicon based on its benefit of plant, soil, the environment, and human health, so that the global agriculture community may have a better understanding of silicon and its use in sustain and improving plant function and health. She has the 20-year academic experience. Currently, under her graduate, 84 postgraduate students had completed their dissertation work and is guide PG and PhD student too. Without wasting much time, I am welcome you to Dr. Chanchal Malhotra, ma'am. You may start now, ma'am.
Thank you, Research SILICA. Thank you, ma'am, for such a nice introduction. Dear participants, very good afternoon. Today, the topic on which I'm going to speak is silicon as a remarkable nutrient for soil, plants, and human health. And my name is Chanchal Malhotra, and I'm working as assistant professor in one of the university, that is Baba Masnath University. So in today's talk, I'm going to tell you about the silicon, which is very important, though it is not considered as essential for the plants itself, but it is very important for the soil as well as for the plants and human health. So today in this session, I am going to throw the light on the silicon as a wonderful element. Before we this slide is about the introduction of silicon. Silicon, which is a second most abundant element in the earth crust, and it is the very important component of many of the mineral soils. It is present in soil in the form of quartz, feldspar, mica, etc., as well as it is also found in the form of secondary silicate minerals, that is in the form of different clay minerals, as well as it is also present in the form of immogolite, opal, etc. All these forms are insoluble, and because of that means though much quantity of silicon is present in the soil, but why we are talking about the deficiency of soil, the reason is what? Because all these forms are insoluble. The soluble form of silicon is a silicic acid, which must be present in the soil, and only that form can be absorbed by the plant, and maximum of the soil are deficient to it. That's why the maximum of the crops, the soil, and are suffering from the deficiency of silicon. And because in the soil the silicon is deficient, as well as likewise in the crop the silicon is deficient, that's why it is not coming in the human body. And it is much important for all these, for the soil, for the plant, as well as for the human beings. So before actually coming to the importance of silicon, let we have a look on the characteristics on the soil ecosystem, means about the soil ecosystem. So first, let we have a look on the soil ecosystem. My dear participants, soil, which is considered as an important ecosystem, which is the, you can say it is the living ecosystem. It is the loose surface of the earth crust. It is the uppermost part of the earth crust, and it contains many of the organic matter as well as inorganic nutrient in it. Now, all these particles, organic as well as inorganic, these are quite important, but the organic content, which is too much important means what? If in the soil the organic matter will not be over there, then the water holding capacity of the soil will not be present. Means it is the organic matter only which bind the soil particle together, and because of binding of these soil particles together, the water holding capacity of soil is over there. And because of this water holding capacity of the soil, the groundwater and water table is maintained, and we are able to withdraw the water from the soil itself. The organic matter of the soil, it is made by the living organisms, the living biodiversity, as well as it is for the living biodiversity. Now, so many organisms are over there which live in the soil, like earthworm, nematodes, arthropods, fungi, bacteria, etc. All these organisms are important for the soil, and for all these organisms the soil is equally important. And this biodiversity makes the soil fertile, and as well as because of this biodiversity the soil is fertile in nature. And more than 25% of the earth species, these live in the soil as well as in the soil litter. So we can say that this organic matter of the soil is much important. Means if the organic content of the soil will not be sufficient, or our soil will not having the proper quantity of organic matter, that it will not be able to retain water, and because of that, if it will not be able to retain water, then we will not be able to grow the crops, as well as whatsoever the biodiversity is surviving in the soil itself. If the soil will be lacking the organic matter, the biodiversity will not be able to survive, as well as because of the biodiversity, the organic matter of the soil is maintained. So we can say that soil is very important ecosystem. It is a living ecosystem actually. Now, this slide is telling what? That as in the earlier slide I had told, that because of the organic carbon, the soil is healthy and we are able to grow the plants. And because of this soil, because of the organic content, the soil is fertile. If the organic content will not be there, the soil's fertility capacity will be lost, and we will not be able to produce the crop. And in that way, whatsoever the other biodiversity is over there, means we are dependent upon the plant directly or indirectly. If the soil will not be fertile, then we will not be able to grow the crops. And if we will not be able to grow the crops, in that case, there is no chance for the survival of other species as well as of the human beings. So if in the soil, the organic matter is less, then it is considered as degraded, and with the passage of time, it becomes less fertile. Dear participants, this slide is telling you about that how the different organisms which are present in the soil work. For example, if over here the tree has been depicted, when the residual portion or the leaves of this tree fall on the ground, then it is acted upon by the different organisms of the soil itself by sequence. Means it is not over there that the different organisms work together. Sequence wise, the different organisms work on that. Means some of the organisms release the chemical, and with the help of chemicals, these broke down the complex material. These convert that organic content into the small litter, and after that, with the help of decomposers, it has been converted into the simplest substances, and that simplest substances in the form of nutrient are added to the soil. And because of that, in that way, the organic content come to the soil, and that organic content is used by the plant again. So in that way, this cycle this cycle operates. So if the organic content will not fall on the, if the like leaf residue will not fall in the soil, then nothing will be available for these organisms to the work. And why these different organisms are working on that organic matter, the thing is what, because from this organic matter only these different organisms are getting the food. Means for the purpose of any greed or reward, all these organisms are working on the residual matter or the leaf of the plant itself. So if this litter or this waste or this residual matter will not be over there, then the soil microorganisms as well as the other living organisms which are working in the one way or other will not get the nutrient or the food. And if these will not get the nutrient or the food, then these will not be able to survive. In that way, as well as it is over there, that if this or a residual portion or the leaf, etc., will not be acted upon by the decomposers, then the recycling of the nutrient or falling back of the nutrient in the soil will not take place, and in that way the organic matter of the soil will fall, and in that way the land will become degraded or the fertility of the land will be lost, and ultimately because of that the whole humanity is going to suffer as well as the other organisms are going to suffer. This figure is depicting that other than the soil too, the different species whatsoever are there on the earth, how these interact with each other. Means without interaction the survival is not possible. What does it mean? That we are not the central entity, we are not the most important species, we are out of the one species of the 7 out of the 7 million species which are present on the earth itself. So it is not over there that only we are important. Whatsoever the different number of the biodiversity species are over there, all are equally important and playing one role or the other and are interacting one way or the other. So if this relationship will not exist and the sequence will not exist, we are not going to, there is no chance for our better survival itself. Dear participant, this slide is telling about what, that if there is proper organic content in the soil, then only the soil will be healthy and the cultivable. So if the soil is healthy, then only we will be able to grow the crops. One thing is that, and if the nutrient status of the soil is good, then only the yield of the crop will get increased, and because of that only we all get the food. What does it mean? That if the soil is not healthy, we will not be able to grow the crops, and if we will not be able to grow the crops, then we are not getting the food, means maximum of us will suffer from hunger. Similarly, if the soil is healthy, means if in the soil the proper nutrients are over there, there is no nutrient deficiency, then only we will be able to get the healthy food. Otherwise, whatsoever the food we are consuming, that is nutrient deficient. The reason is what? Because the soil itself, it is nutrient deficient. Until and unless the soil will not be healthy, the food cannot be, food which can be grown in that which will be grown in that soil cannot be healthy. And if the food is not healthy, we cannot say that the people will be healthy if the food is not healthy. So the prerequisite condition for being healthy is what? That the soil must be healthy, then only the crops which we are growing in that soil will be healthy, and after that only we can become healthy. The third thing is what? That if the soil is healthy, then the cooler planet will be over there. What does it mean? That if in the soil the organic content is over there, proper organic content is over there, one thing is that. Second thing is what? That major portion of the carbon from the atmosphere is absorbed by the soil, and in that way the concentration of carbon dioxide in atmosphere get decreased. And as we know that if the concentration of carbon dioxide will be more in the air, then it can lead to the global warming, and it is leading to the global warming. So if that carbon dioxide is absorbed from the atmosphere to the soil itself, then the concentration of the carbon dioxide will get decreased, and if the concentration of carbon dioxide will be less, then but naturally the global warming effect can be reversed, and this will lead to the cooler planet. Likewise, as in the earlier slide, I had told that the organic content of the soil is able to hold the water, means because of the organic content of the soil itself, the aggregate of the soils are formed, and because of the aggregates, the water retention capacity of the soil will be over there. And if the water retention capacity of the soil will be over there, then only the water table and groundwater will be maintained. And if the soil is not healthy, means organic content is not there, the aggregates will not be formed. If the aggregates will not be formed, then it will not be able to hold the water. And if it will not be able to hold the water, then we will suffer from the water scarcity. Likewise, if the soil is healthy and crop yield is good, everybody is getting the food, people are healthy, the planet is good, water security is over there, definitely we are going to live healthy. Similarly, if the soil is healthy, then whatsoever the crops will be grown in that healthy soil, their yield will be more. And so many people are over there which are dependent upon the crop, and they are selling their crops. So in the return, they will get the better price. And because of that, by getting the better price, their income will be increased. They will get more income. So their standard of living will get increased, will be better. So in that way, the organic matter of the soil is very much important. And if the organic matter will be over there, then the different conditions of the life can be enhanced. Now, this slide is telling about what? That if the organic content of the soil will decrease, then the soil will become less fertile, and because of that, then that is known as land degradation, and means loss of organic content of the soil. That is one of the main sign which indicate that land degradation has started. And ultimately, this land degradation can lead to desertification, and sometime desertification, so many times it is over there, the desertification cannot be reversed. That means if the land degradation is severe, then there are very less chances that land degradation can be reversed. So it is very cause of concern that organic content of the soil is decreasing, and very near future, the maximum soil of the world is going to be degraded, and it may lead to the desertification. That's why for the sustainable development, there is very much need to reverse the land degradation. Means some steps should be taken by which whatsoever the land is undergoing degraded, that can be made fertile. Only then the sustainable development can take place, as well as we will able to conserve the biodiversity, as well as whatsoever the problem are coming in the climate, we can be able to reverse these. Now, next slide is about what? That this slide is telling about what? That if the soil organic content will be lost, then we may suffer from hunger, as well as the water will not be available. Means we can face the water scarcity, as well as the climate change can be there. Means because if in the soil the organic content will be less, and if the soil will not be able to absorb the carbon, then that carbon will come to the atmosphere, and it will add to the global warming itself. So if the organic content will be less in the soil, then it can lead to the global warming too. Means so organic carbon is less in the soil. What does it mean? That carbon dioxide is not, the soil is not able to hold the carbon, and that carbon is coming to the atmosphere itself. So if the loss of soil will be over there, then all these impacts we can suffer. All these impacts will be over there. So that is why the land degradation, it is you can say that it's very much cause of concern. It's very much cause of concern. Now, the major problem with carbon storage in soil is what? That it is reversible. Means the soil can absorb carbon, and it absorbs carbon, but the problem is what? That whatsoever the organic matter or the carbon is absorbed by the soil, it eventually releases back to the atmosphere in the form of carbon dioxide. Means the soil is not able to hold that carbon for the longer period of time. So if we apply that sort of strategy where the soil can hold the carbon, then we can provide one of the solution for the climate change, the problem with which we are suffering from. So one of the solution is with the silicon itself. So where is the solution means how the silicon is helpful for the soil, as well as how the silicon can be helpful for bringing whatsoever the change in the global warming, in the temperature of the earth is taking place, how the silicon can be helpful for bringing that the effect of global warming down. So let me see in the next upcoming slides. There is relationship between the carbon and the phytolith. What does it mean? That carbon of the soil, the concentration, the content of the carbon of the soil can be increased by growing those plants which can store more carbon in their phytolith. That is very important. Means if the carbon fixation in the soil will be trapped more, then but natural it will be over there that the concentration of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere will get decreased. So if it is over there that if we grow those type of plant which make phytolith, which have more phytolith, and in these phytolith the carbon is trapped for a longer period of time, and in that way it protect the as we had seen that with the soil the problem is what that the words of the carbon is over there in the soil, it come back to the atmosphere. So if we grow such type of plant which make more phytolith, and in the phytolith has what the characteristics of phytolith is over there, that it can store the carbon in them for a longer period of time. So in that way, with the help of phytolith, we can whatsoever the global warming is over taking place, we can reduce the effect of that global warming itself. So in this slide, we will see that how it is possible. How the phytoliths are formed actually, that the silicon, when it is present in the soil, then from the soil the plant take the silica or the silicon, and it is transported via the xylem in the form of monosilicic acid. And at the specific site where the silicon concentration is raised, the solid amorphous silica comes out in the form of solution, and in that way silica bodies are formed, and these silica bodies are known as phytolith. So phytoliths are what? These are the silica bodies. And what these phytoliths do, these phytoliths are formed in the cell wall as well as in the lumen of the cell itself, and these take the shape of the cell in which they are deposited, and in that way means these phytoliths are formed. And when the plant die, then the phytolith enter the soil, and in that way the silicon come back to the silicon pool of the soil itself. Now these phytoliths are entrapped within the cell vacuole too, and as well as in these phytolith, what is present, 66 to 91% silica is present, as well as along with this silica 1 to 6% occluded carbon is over there, as well as iron and aluminium. So what does it mean? That these phytoliths are able to store the carbon in them. Silicon itself, it is an important nutrient for the plant, for the soil itself, and other than that the phytolith contain 1 to 6% of the carbon, iron and aluminium in them. In that way these become very important for the soil itself, and when the plant die, and then the phytoliths are released into the soil, and these may remain stable in the same soil for many of the years, and in that way these increase the chemical and physical properties of the soil itself. So how means the silicon is important for the soil. Silicon can improve the organic content of the soil itself, as well as when it will increase the organic content and it will retain the organic content for the longer period of time, then it In that way, the carbon dioxide concentration of the atmosphere may get decreased, and this will lead to the comparatively cooling of our planet itself. So in that way, the silicon is important for the soil itself. Then it's about the next slide. Then is about this slide, that how the silicon is important for the plant. In the last slide, we had seen that how the silicon is important for the soil itself. So soil means how the silicon is important for the soil, that it increases the carbon content of the soil by entrapping carbon for a longer period of time. So if in the soil, the carbon content and the organic content will be more, and that soil will be more fertile. So we can say that silicon is much important for the soil. So it is a remarkable element for the soil itself. Means silicon makes by increasing the organic content of the soil, it makes the soil fertile. So in that way, it is very important, remarkable element for the soil itself. Now this slide is telling about what? This soil is telling about how the silicon is important for the plant. So much of the literature is over there which tells us that the silicon is very important for the plant. Silicon protect the plant from the abiotic as well as biotic stresses. Abiotic stresses means what? It protect the plant from the drought condition, frost, salinity, ultraviolet radiations, heavy metal toxicity, high temperature, etc. In the different way, the silicon protect the plant from the abiotic stresses. So it regulate water uptake by the root, it balance the mineral uptake, it is also involved in the osmotic adjustment, as well as it increases the activity of the photoenzymes and photochemical efficiency. It improves the antioxidant defense system. So in that way, it protects the plant from number of the abiotic stresses. The next slide tells us about what? That silicon is important for the plant to cope up with the biotic stresses. Biotic stresses and abiotic stresses means what? Abiotic, the stresses which are caused because of the living, non-living factors, and biotic stresses means it protects the plant from the infection of fungi, microbial attack, as well as it protects the plant from the grazing animals. So in the different way it works and it protects the plant from the physical defense. For example, in case of invasion by wheat blast, the plant which are supplied with silicon, in that way, in those plant, the fungus will not be able to penetrate beyond the epidermal cell. Because of that, the crop will be protected from the blast disease. Likewise, in case of, if we talk about the grazing defense, then what the silicon do? It increases the toughness of the plant. It increases the toughness of the plant, and in that way, it become a potential by which it protect the crop from the grazing animals. As well as silicon has been found to activate many of the defense related enzymes such as superoxide dismutase, ascorbate peroxidase, glutathione reductase, etc. As well as it also activates the phenol, flavonoid and phytolexins, which work as antimicrobial compounds. Similarly, it is involved in the regulation of signal pathway, for example, which are involved in the salicylic acid, jasmonic acid and ethylene. So in that way, by these different way, the silicon has been found effective in coping up the biotic stresses. So in that way, it becomes a remarkable element for the plants itself. What can be the possible mechanism by which it is mitigating the water stress or abiotic stress as well as the biotic stress? One is what? That it break up the compact soil, and if the compact soil means because of the silicon, the compact soil break easily, and if the soil will not be compact, then the water and air will be better available. Water and air will be penetrate in the soil, and this water and air will be available to the plant itself, as well as it help in increasing the absorption of water and iron from the soil. So more absorption of or the proper concentration, proper quantity of the water and ions will be absorbed from the soil. So in that way, the plant will become the healthy. As well as at the cell wall level, what the silicon do, it get deposited as the silicon cellulose membrane, and in that way it is strengthen the cell wall too. So if it strengthen the cell wall, then if the water scarcity condition is over there, then it prevent the compression of the xylem vessels. So in that way it help the plant in fighting with the or coping up with the with the water stress itself. As well as in the last slide we have seen that it get converted into the various type of phytolith, and because of the silicon deposition, the transpiration get reduced and it maintain the water balance, as well as it keep the leaf blade in erect position. And if the leaf blade will be in the erect position, then light receiving posture will be more. So in that way, and as well as the leaf area will be more, so more light receiving posture will be there, so photosynthesis will get increased, and in that way the more productive will be there. As well as it help in the synthesizing of the enzymes, proteins, and cofactors which are required for the synthesis of chlorophyll. So more of the chlorophyll will be there in those plants which are supplemented with the soil itself, which are supplemented with the silicon itself. As well as it boosts up the antioxidant defense system such as ascorbate, glutathione, carotenoids, etc., superoxide dismutase, catalase, etc. So in that way, because of these enzymes work as the defense system. So in that way, the plant is able to cope up many of the stresses which may be abiotic as well as the biotic. The silicon supplementation has also been found to increase the sugar content and the proline content, which act as the osmoprotectant. And it also reduce the concentration of growth inhibiting substance such as abscisic acid. So probably by these various mechanisms, the silicon help the plant to mitigate the different biotic and as well as abiotic stresses. This is a slide which shows that how the silicon cycle runs. Now, where is the problem actually? Where is a problem that though silicon is the second most abundant element present in the earth crust, but maximum, the problem is that whatsoever the silicon is present in the soil, that is insoluble, means that is not available to the plant itself. So silk means the form of silicon which can be available to the plant is silicic acid and soluble silicic acid, and the concentration of that silicic acid is very less in the soil. Soluble silicic acid is very less in the soil, and because of that only the soil is suffering from the deficiency of silicon. Now what can be the reason? Because of the one reason is extensive agriculture. It has been estimated that from about 210 to 225 million tons of the silicon is removed from the soil annually. The thing is that as we know that the different type of plant is over there, monocot and the dicot, and maximum of the monocot absorb the soil, absorb the silicon from the soil, and these store in the silicon in the different part of the body, and because of that the concentration of silicon get decreased if we are not adding the silicon to the soil itself. And generally the silicon fertilization is not very much popular, means the plants are extracting or absorbing the silicon from the soil, and we are not leaving the residual portion of those plants in the soil, on the soil itself. So the silicon concentration of silicon cannot be replenished in that way, and because of that its deficiency is taking place. The second very much important reason is what? The elimination of silicon solubilizing bacteria, means when we are adding number of the chemical fertilizers to the soil, and which is changing the chemistry of the soil itself, and because of that so many microbes are disappearing. What is the function of these silicon solubilizing bacteria? These convert the insoluble form of silicon to the soluble form. So if these silicon solubilizing bacteria will not be over there, then the insoluble form of the silicon will not be able to convert into the soluble form, and it will not be able to available to the plant itself. So when we are using number of the chemical fertilizers in the soil itself, it is changing the chemistry of the soil, and because of that it is affecting the silicon solubilizing bacteria too. And because of the decreasing number of the silicon solubilizing bacteria, the replenishment of the silicon is not taking place. Next is what? A severe and continuous soil erosion. As we know that only top few inches of the soil is fertile, means we can able to grow the crop in that few inches of the soil itself, and we are not leaving the field fallow, or we are leaving the field fallow for a longer period of time. Because of that the soil erosion is taking place, as well as we are uprooting so many of the plants, and because of so many reasons it is there that the soil erosion is taking place. And because of that also the continuous soil erosion, the silicon concentration is decreasing the soil itself. So this is a very much reason. Because of that the deficiency of silicon in the soil is over there. Now, silicon as a fertilizer, as silicon require, how much the silicon is required by the plant. What does it mean? That though sometime it is over there that if we test for the presence of silicon, then silicon is there, but if that silicon is not soluble, the plant will not be able to take that. So what the requirement of silicon is over there means whether what concentration or what quantity of soluble silicon is present in soil, that factor become very important. So until and unless we will not be having such methods which can test for the presence of soluble silicon in the soil, we cannot judge or predict that how much the silicon fertilizer is required for the soil itself. So there is very much need for developing those procedures or the methods by which we can estimate the concentration of soluble silicon of the soil, and after that only we will be able to predict that how much the fertilizer is needed by the plant or the soil in the form of silicon fertilizer. It is also over there that the silicon, which is not considered as essential element, but it is very much required for the proper growth and development of the plant. Means if in the soil the concentration of silicon is less, then though the plant will be able to complete its life cycle, but its wonderful or better growth and development will not take place. And sometimes it is over there that the concentration of silicon is less in the soil, and because of that only the plant is coping up or is not able to face the number of the abiotic and biotic stresses, and it becomes susceptible to many of the pathogens. To get rid of those pathogens, we just spray the pesticides, and sometimes those pesticides are not required at all. Means whatsoever the symptoms are coming to the crop, that are just because of the deficiency of the silicon in the soil. And to cope up with those symptoms, or we just spray the pesticides, and in turn the pesticides kill the useful entity or the biodiversity of the soil itself. So it is very cause of concern that because we are not able to see, means we are not having that so much of the good procedures by which we can judge, we can test that how much quantity of soluble silicon is over there in the soil. And being important, it can help the plant to fight biotic and abiotic stresses. And sometimes it is over there that if the concentration of silicon in the soil is good, then it will be able to protect the plant from number of the biotic stresses in the form of pest, insect, etc. etc. And there will be probably no need to spray the pesticides and insecticide, etc. So in that way, the silicon is very important for the soil itself. In Japan and China, silicon fertilizer is the big business, and it is used in the crops such as rice and wheat, and basically in the rice, because rice is a staple crop of many of the countries. Now, why we are talking about rice and wheat? Because as in the earlier slide, I had told that maximum of the monocots are over there, which absorb the soil, silicon from the soil, and then they store this silicon in the different parts of the body. And if we don't leave the residual matter of the wheat and rice and the different grasses we are growing in the soil, if we will not leave the residual matter to the soil itself, then silicon will not be available to the soil again. So means the replenishment of the silicon will not be able to take place. So because of that, the concentration, the quantity of the silicon will get decreased with passage of time. So that's why to replenish the silicon in the soil itself, there is very much important that we should use the silicon fertilizers which can replenish the concentration of silicon in the soil itself. Now, next slide is what that status of silicon fertilizer in India. What does it mean that that in India the silicon fertilizers are gaining importance, though limited information is available on the status of plant available silicon. But when the maximum of the soil were tested, then these revealed that because our soils are intensive cultivation, and because of that, the plant available silicon is very less in quantity. So by virtue of this, means by seeing this, that our soils are deficient in silicon, the government of India has included the silicon fertilizer in fertilizer control order in clause 20A. It has been, silicon fertilizer has been included, as well as the orthosilicic acid has been added as the beneficial element fertilizer in the schedule 1 part A in 2018. In 2017, the silicon fertilizer has been included in the fertilizers, and as well as the orthosilicic acid in 2018 has been added as the beneficial element. So in the last class, in the last slides, we have seen that how much the silicon is important for the soil as well as for the plants. Now this slide tells us about what that silicon is not only important for the soil and plant, it is important for the human health too. How it is important for the human health? The presence of silicon increases the absorption and utilization of other mineral elements such as magnesium and copper, and it has been suggested that silicon play very important role in regulating the cell cycle of lymphocytes, and in that way which will ultimately affect the immune and inflammatory response. As well as it has been found that that to prevent the risk of developing Alzheimer's disease, the silica rich water has been found very helpful. So in that way, we can say that silicon has been found very important for the human health too. So these are the various papers, research papers, which tells us the story that how much the silicon is important for the human health. Silicon is important for the bone health, as well as it is considered as an important constituent in the homeopathic medicines. And these papers indicate that silica and silicus, these have number of the health benefits. Silica has been proved as a remedy by the German founder of homeopathy, Dr. Samuel Hahnemann. So in homeopathic medicines, the silica has been given as very important place. In homeopathy, silica is used to treat the symptoms of chronic diseases, as well as it is used to treat the general weakness. And if the physical or emotional strength is weak of the person, for the treatment of that, the silica is given to those patients. So in that way, silica is helpful to fight many of the chronic diseases, as well as it is quite important in the general weakness too. Likewise, it can offer relief for the symptoms of mental fatigue with the chilliness, and as well as it is helpful for the people who somehow feel lack of energy and irritability, and it is helpful for those too who have difficulty in concentrating due to worry or the overwork. As well as this medicine means the medicine, silica containing medicine has also been found for helpful in skin conditions such as ties. As well as the literature says that silica has also an important place in the Ayurveda too. In the classics of Rasa Shastra, the scattered reference of SIKATA VARGA, in SIKATA VARGA, the silica compounds are used, and this has been found very beneficial too. Means SIKATA VARGA are silicon compounds, group of drugs have therapeutic value. These are the different, this table tells about the different SIKATA VARGA DRAVYAS, like SIKATA, Dugdha, Pashna, etc. And in all these you can see that silicon is the important constituents. In all these SIKATA VARGA DRAVYAS, the silicon is used as important constituents, and all these DRAVYAS have one or the other importance. Like Dugdha Pashna, it help in relief of fever, as well as for the bleeding injuries, and along with curd, if it is taken, it is helpful in diarrhea and dysentery. Likewise, talc, the important constituent, silicon is the important constituent of talc, which act as a lubricant and as a filler, as well as it is used as a filler in paper manufacture, and in the talc the silicon is used. And as we know that in talc it is used in the baby powder as well as work as astringent powder, and it is used for the prevention of rashes, etc. So in that way, in the Ayurveda too, we found that in many of the DRAVYAS, the silicon is used as an important constituent. So we can say that silicon is very important for the human beings too. It is associated with several health benefits related to the structure and function of blood vessels, bone, kidney, liver, skin, and the tendon, etc. Now these are the different, means our daily requirement for the silicon is met by eating all these cereals or the fruits which we are eating one way or the other, and in all these food items the silicon is present. So, cereals such as rice, wheat, oat, and barley, these contain the silicon, sufficient quantity of silicon, as well as fruits, particularly banana and apple, and in the vegetable like potato, beetroot, carrot, green beans, etc. the silicon is present, and as well as in the nuts and the dried fruits the silicon is present. So we can say that silicon is much important for the soil, and if it is important for the soil, then it is important for the plants too, because we are growing the plant to the soil, and we are getting food, and every creature is dependent upon the plant directly or indirectly. So every animal creature is dependent upon the plant directly or indirectly. So if the silicon is helping the soil and it is making the soil better, then definitely it is going to help the crop, and if the crops will be better, then the health of the human will be better. So we can say that the silicon is a very remarkable element for the soil, for plants, and as well as for the human beings too. This is about my research work. I had studied the impact of silicon in tomato, as well as also studied the impact of silicon in the paddy crop itself. In tomato, I had studied the application of silicon in mitigating the abiotic stress, especially the drought stress. And as a silicon fertilizer, I had studied the impact on the paddy crop in the form of yield attributes. So this all is about the introduction of my work, that this is all about the drought stress, that what is drought stress and how it is harmful for the plant itself. The plant, how plant also responds to the water stress by one way or the other. But if the water stress is severe, then sometimes plants are not able to cope up with these. And if the long-term symptoms of the water stress remain, then it can lead to the death of the plant itself. So there are the different ways by which the silicon help the plant in coping up the water stress. If we see the literature, then so many conventional practices were over there in which silicon was used. For example, we know that when the infestation in our crops takes place, then usually ashes of the firewood is used to fight against that infection, and the ashes of firewood, it contain silicon in it actually. Likewise, in the rice field, during summer in southern part of the India, the sand is applied. Likewise, for a number of time it is over there that crop residues are kept or retained on the soil surface so that water can be conserved. Similarly, in the Kaveri Delta, the rice farmers feel what they do actually, they keep the sand in the field once in every 2 to 4 years. And all this means the ashes of the firewood and sand and crop residue, all these contain silica in them. Means in the conventional practices, the silicon was used by the farmer itself for the betterment of the soil. So for my study, I had used sodium silicate in the crop Lycopersicon esculentum, means in the tomato, where I studied the effect of drought stress on the different morphological parameter and biochemical parameters of the Lycopersicon esculentum, as well as whether the silicon was able to you can say to mitigate those effect or not. So this is about the treatment plan. I had used the different concentrations of the silicon for my crop, and at a different stages, means at the vegetative stage and at the flowering stage, the different morphological and biochemical parameters were studied, and all these are the results. If I talk about the morphological parameter and parameters, then at every point the increase in the morphological parameter was there. With respect to number of leaves, 92.68% increase in number of leaves was there as comparison to the control. Control means what? In which the silicon was not used. Likewise, with respect to length of leaves, number of branches, plant height, etc., at every of the pace, the enhancement or the increase was over there. So all these slides tells the result of my work. These slides tell the result of my work, and ultimately the increase in economic yield was also over there. And this slide is about what? That I had studied the impact of I had studied the impact of silicon fertilizer on the different yield attributes of paddy, and this experiment was done in the actual field itself. And in this case, the chemical silicon was not used. Actually, the silicon fertilizer was used, and the control was what? That in which basal fertilizer was used. And the silicon fertilizer which was used for my study was SILICA, and actually I purchased it from AgriPower Australia. And silicon fertilizer was used as a single dose after the 10 days of transplantation. So I got very wonderful result. Number of tillers, effective tillers per hill, number of spikes, total spikes, number of spikelets, total spikelets means number of grains per panicle, number of grains per hill, weight of the grain at every of the parameter. I had found the wonderful results. So in the present study, the significant rise in the plant thickness, number of tillers, effective tillers, number of tillers per hill, effective tillers per hill, flag leaf length, flag leaf area, means at all the parameters, at all these parameters, the silicon was found much effective. So we can say that the silicon is agronomically important fertilizer, which increase the tolerance capacity of the plant against abiotic as well as abiotic stresses. So it can be recommended as the fertilizer for the crop itself. And as in the previous slide, we had seen that it is important for the soil, for the plant, and as well as for the human beings. So we can say that it is a remarkable element for every of the things. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for very informative session. We will ask our participant to put your question in comment box. We will try to provide the answer by Dr. Chanchal Malhotra, ma'am, below the comments. Thank you so much, all the participants, for your active participation. Let me inform to all that this complete session will be available on our Research Circle YouTube channel. So if you want to watch it again or want to share it to somebody, please do visit the Research Circle YouTube channel. Thanks. And last but not the least, thank you, Dr. Chanchal Malhotra, ma'am, for taking out the time for session. With your permission, I would like to end today's session here, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. Thank you, Research Circle, for providing me the platform. Thank you very much. Thank you.